Hey, I'm your host, Jen Wheeler, and this is the Healthy Her podcast. I'm a teacher, author, and foodie who went from being addicted to sugar, skipping meals, and struggling to get in control of my eating, to someone who is 10 kilos down, eats all the yummy foods without restriction, and is finally in control of my hunger. I'm obsessed with helping other health-conscious women ditch the confusion and overwhelm so they can cultivate healthy eating habits and truly thrive. The Healthy Her podcast was created to give you real talk about healthy eating, as well as easy, actionable tips that fit seamlessly into your busy lifestyle. I'm not just your host. Think of me as your healthy eating hype gal, your personal cheerleader as we chat all things healthy eating, weight loss, and mindset mastery, so you can become the healthiest, happiest version of you. So if you're ready to ditch the guilt, reclaim your confidence, and unlock the very best version of you, then you're in the right place. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Healthy Her podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be talking all about food rules. So I'm going to give you all of my tips and tricks to help you break free and help you understand that the food rules that you have for yourself are keeping you stuck and are stopping you from eating healthy consistently with ease. So that's what we are going to talk about in today's episode. Now, if you're listening to this and you've just read the title of the episode about food rules and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't have any rules around food, I can 100% guarantee that you have some rules around food. The problem is, as women, that we are actually just not even aware of the fact that we have these food rules and that these food rules that we have are keeping us stuck in this not so great place and is stopping us from moving forward. So, everyone has food rules, and in today's episode, I'm going to help you become aware of them so that you can move past them and head closer towards your goals and to healthy eating success. So, first of all, let's jump into what is a food rule. A food rule is a belief system or a belief that you have around a certain food. Now, it can come in different forms. So, it can come in the form of being a food rule with regards to when you eat a certain food or the time of the day that you should or shouldn't eat a certain food. Your food rule could also be down to how you actually prepare the food so that it has to be prepared or made in a certain way. That is also a food rule. Another one is the amount that you eat. So it can come down to the amount of that particular food that you eat or the quantity of that food. So when you eat the food, so the time of the day, how you prepare this food, and also the amount that you eat or the quantity of that food that you eat. So these are all food rules and different types of food rules because I want you to understand that there are lots of different types of food rules. So it's about identifying which ones you believe in so we can throw them out the window and move on to healthy eating success. So a food rule is just a belief that you have developed over time about a certain food. So it's when you eat that food, the time of the day that you should eat the food, how that food should be prepared, or the amount or the quantity of that particular food that you eat. Now you're probably thinking, okay, maybe I do have some food rules. So we are going to get into the different types and I'm going to give you lots of examples in this episode. Yep, that's me. And so lots of examples that you can easily relate to. So where do these food rules come from? Unfortunately, we all have them, especially as women. I would probably say women more so than men have these food rules, but where do they actually come from? And our food rules that we have developed over many years and over a long period of time. So they start from our childhood and then they move into growing up, also to the people that we surround ourselves with. It might be friends, family, it might be a neighbor, it might be colleagues. All of these things contribute to these food rules that we have developed over time. So I'll give you some examples. So, for example, in childhood, especially if you've grown up here in Australia, a really common one was you need to eat all of your dinner before you can have dessert. That is a rule around food. It's like, well, if you eat all this food, you get rewarded with a sweet dessert. So that may be a way that you have grown up in your childhood, so that even if you're thinking, wow, I'm really not hungry and I don't want to eat all of this food, if you don't finish everything that's on your plate, that it's wasteful and that you didn't appreciate the meal that was cooked for you and that you won't get dessert. So that can be a food rule that you have built up or developed from childhood. Also, growing up and the people that are around you, like what are their beliefs around food and what things do they say? Do they say you have to finish everything on your plate before you can eat anything else? Or it's rude to leave the table without finishing everything that's on your meal. It might be around the quantity of something that you use, like it might be the serving size of butter or jam or something like that. Your parents may have had a rule about how much butter you're allowed to use on your toast or how much jam. All of these things contribute to the beliefs that we have around food. And over time, these beliefs and the people that we're around and the things that we are grown up with, they form food rules and rules around food. And unfortunately, depending on your family's beliefs around food, is going to impact the food rules that you have set for yourself now. If you've grown up in a fairly healthy household that ate all foods in moderation, then you're more likely to have a good relationship with food now and not have so many hard and fast food rules. Where if your mum mums in particular have a massive impact on us. If your mum was very into her body, into her weight, she didn't like her body, the messages and the rules and things that you have around food may not be as positive as, say, someone else. So your food rules come from a variety of different places and they are developed over many years, over a long period of time. And like I said, they can either be a positive experience or those food rules can be a negative experience. But they do all contribute to what we believe around food today as adults and as grown women. All of those things have had an impact on creating and building that understanding and that belief around food that we have. So, here are some really popular food rules that you can probably relate to. Food rule number 1, that when you eat bread, that you should only have one piece of bread. Who made up that rule? But it's back to this food rule that bread is bad for us and that we shouldn't eat bread. And there's this belief of, oh, if I just have toast, I'll just have one piece. I won't have two pieces. That is a food rule that you have for yourself. Now, the problem is that you're not even aware of it, but it is a food rule. That is something that you believe around food that is keeping you stuck. Now, if you have two pieces of bread, some scrambled eggs, maybe a bit of avocado on the side, that's a really quick, healthy, nourishing meal. Now, if you only have one piece of bread, you might find yourself hungry not long after because the one piece of bread wasn't enough and the eggs wasn't enough to satisfy you. So, that is a food rule that is holding you back. Another one, that pasta is bad for you, or in relation to the timing of pasta, like there is this food rule that many women believe that if you eat pasta after 5 o'clock or in the evening, that suddenly the bowl of spaghetti that you eat will suddenly and magically and miraculously turn into body fat. And that's just not the case. That is another food rule that you have for yourself. And the problem is, as women, that we are so not aware of these things, but they are the biggest blocker to us making progress when it comes to being able to eat healthy consistently and just to eat healthy with ease and for it to feel flowy and easy and for us to not have to be thinking about food all the time. It's because these food rules that we have for ourselves keep blocking us and keep getting in our way because they keep coming up. And the unfortunate thing is those things have developed over a long period of time. So it is hard to shake them. But later in this episode, I'm going to give you a few tips that might help you so you can ditch those food rules and just start eating more healthy consistently with success. So, like I said, this food rule that we suddenly believe that we shouldn't eat carbs after 5 o'clock and that it's miraculously going to make us all fat, it's just not true. It's just another food rule. So, this is your reminder. If you want to eat pasta at night time, that you go ahead. When it comes to weight loss, it's about numbers, it's about your calories, it's about what you're consuming. So, one bowl of pasta after 5 o'clock on an evening is not going to change anything for you. So eat that pasta, please. Also, too, eat those 2 pieces of bread. That's another food rule. Another one, and totally exposing myself here because I've gone through all the different food rules. One of my big food rules that I had for myself was that fat will make me fat. So things like I would never eat something like nuts or avocado or butter because I knew that they were fat. So if I ate fat, it would make me fat. And that is a food rule that I had for myself. And unfortunately, what happened is that I went, well, I'm not going to eat any fat. One, I was left hungry because we need those fats to satisfy us for longer. But I also then went down the no fat or the low fat option. And unfortunately at that time, because I was eating things like yogurt and stuff for lunch because I thought it was healthy, yes, they were lower in fat or they had no fat. They had a ton of sugar in them. A lot of those products, especially yogurts and things like that, when they take out the fat, they've got to add something in so it tastes good. So they're always added in sugar. So for me, that just continually got me stuck in that sugar craving cycle. And if you want to find out more about sugar cravings and what I did to overcome them and what you can do to overcome them, you can go back and listen to our previous episode of the Healthy Her podcast. It's all about sugar cravings. So everything that you need to know is in there. So I definitely got stuck down that rabbit hole of if I eat fat, it will make me fat. And it's just not true. So if you're listening to this and you're avoiding all of the good fats, peanut butter, nuts, avocado, all of those kind of things, and you're thinking that will make you fat, there is no one food or no one meal that can make you gain weight. And that's a really important thing as women that we need to understand. So, again, that's another food rule that we have. So, eating fat will make you fat. The other thing is when it comes to food rules, it's also labeling food as good or bad. So, for me, I always struggled with eating cake. I always thought that cake is so bad for me. So, we just don't eat cake. So, for you, your food rule might be that I can't have chocolate. If I eat chocolate, that's really bad and I'm a really bad person and I'm going to put on weight if I eat chocolate and it's full of sugar and it's really bad for you. Again, that's just another food rule that you have created for yourself that chocolate is bad. And the problem with these food rules as women that we create for ourselves is they keep us stuck. They keep us stuck in this really bad negative cycle around food. And when you start labeling foods as good or bad. And if you label a food as bad, I can tell you from personal experience with my cake. And if it's chocolate, you might be a savory girl and your thing might be chips or corn chips or like a cheese platter, whatever your thing is. If you in your mind have given it a food rule and said, that is a bad food, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to overeat and binge on that food because in your mind, your brain is saying, I can't have that food. It's bad for me. I'm never allowed to eat that food. So as soon as that food is put in front of you, whether that's at home, at a party, when you go to a get together, a coffee catch up, and that food is put in front of you, you are not going to be able to stop eating it because your brain has given it a food rule and labeled it as bad. So it's, if I eat that, I'm really bad. And then obviously when you eat that thing, what comes with that afterwards? There's the guilt. That was a bad food and I shouldn't have eaten that food. And now I feel terrible and everything I've done is for nothing and all of my efforts are a failure. And can you see how we just get stuck in this negative cycle and this negative loop around food? And it honestly all comes down to those food rules that we have created for ourselves. Okay, so far we've talked about what a food rule is, like the different types. So it can be when you eat, how you eat, all of those things, the amount that you eat, where they come from. So we've talked about different experiences around food and where those beliefs around food and those food rules may have come from. Are you ready to step into a vibrant community of health-conscious women where your journey to helping feel easy begins? Welcome to the Healthy Eating Hype Gal community, your ultimate destination for mastering your relationship with food and embracing a healthy lifestyle. As a busy working mum who's lost 10 kilos, I've been through it all and I understand the struggle. That's why I'm here to teach you the exact steps and tools I use to lose weight, conquer my mindset and thrive, all while juggling the demands of everyday life. Say goodbye to no more confusing fad diets or overwhelming nutrition advice. In this community, I'll guide you through the maze of weight loss and healthy eating and explain it to you in a way that finally makes sense. From easy, family-friendly meal plans to my exclusive calorie deficit quick guide, monthly masterclasses, plus so much more, so you can finally make healthy eating an achievable lifestyle without restriction. It's time to ditch the confusion and overwhelm for good. Join today and kickstart your journey to a healthier, happier you. There's no perfect time to start. Let's make your wellness dreams a reality. Now, this is where we get into the juicy stuff. I want to talk to you about how you can change it, because if you are not aware of these food rules and if you don't start doing something about it, they are just going to keep you stuck. They're going to keep you stuck. They're going to keep you in that negative loop, in that negative cycle. And it's why you can't find flow and rhythm with your healthy eating, because every time you do and every time you put in some effort, one of these food rules is going to pop up again. And you're not even aware that you're doing it, but these food rules are keeping you stuck. So I want to give you lots of tips, lots of advice of how you can unstuck yourself and ditch these food rules so you can just start to create food freedom for yourself. So how do we change it? Number one, you have to become aware of these food rules. Like I said, I was not aware of these food rules, and I can guarantee you that there are a lot of you listening to this today going, yep. Like, I'm the bread person. I'm the, yep, I don't eat pasta after 5 o'clock. Yep, I'm the girl that will never touch an avocado or a nut because I think it will make me fat. Like, we all have these food rules. So, number one is you have to become aware of what you're doing. Okay. And this does take a little bit of time and a little bit of practice, because you've just gone on for so many years just not even being aware of these things. So, it's really about tuning in with yourself. Like I said, next time if you're going to make yourself some toast and you're making yourself one piece of toast, stop yourself and think, okay, I'm actually really hungry today. I'm going to have 2 pieces of toast with my protein smoothie this morning because I feel a little bit more hungry than normal. And it's totally okay for me to have 2 pieces of toast. So you really have to start becoming aware of it. You can't just push these things aside and these internal thoughts and these things that we tell ourselves and say it doesn't matter, because it does matter. So, number one, is just starting to become aware of those personal food rules, those personal beliefs around food, and just starting to turn that little radar on so that you can start to identify them. Okay, number two, you need to identify the food rule that you have. So name it, say it out loud. Okay, here is a little task that you can do. And I do something similar in my course and also with my Healthy Eating Hype Gal members. Is what you need to do is you need to get a piece of paper and you need to write down all of the food rules that you have, because what this will do is it will make you aware of your food rules. Like I said in point number one, if you are not aware of the things that you are doing, it is very difficult to change them because you're just guessing. You have to start becoming aware of these things that you are doing around food. So grab a piece of paper when this podcast finishes, or if you're listening to this on your walk, grab your phone, jump into your notes and start jotting down the food rules that you have. And then what I want you to do is, if it's in your phone, I want you to delete it. If you're writing it on a piece of paper, I want you to read through them. I want you to recognize them. I want you to identify them, read them out loud, screw up the piece of paper and throw it in the bin. So this will just help to signify that you've, one, identified these food rules, you've become aware of them, and you're going to make an effort to ditch them and to letting them hold you back and to stop letting them keeping you stuck. Tip number three, so you have to start to ditch or get rid of these food rules because they are no longer serving you. But in order to do that, you have to acknowledge it when it comes up. So, for example, if someone offers you some chocolate and in your mind, your internal thoughts are saying, you can't have that chocolate. Chocolate is really bad for me. It's full of sugar. It'll make me put on weight. Become aware of those thoughts and those things that you're telling yourself, because that is a food rule. So, become aware of it and go, hey, hang on a minute. Hang on, Jen. What are you doing? We know that's something, a rule, a totally false rule that we've just made up for ourselves. It's okay to have a little bit of chocolate, all foods in moderation, and say to yourself, I'm going to have a little bit of chocolate. I'm going to eat it mindfully and I'm going to enjoy it. So you're trying to slowly ditch that food rule and that thought pattern that you have around food. So we've got number one, become aware of it. Number two, identify it. Number three, we want to ditch it. We want to get rid of it because it is keeping you stuck and it is keeping you in that unhealthy cycle and belief system around food. And tip number four, we need to repeat and reinforce. Okay. Like I mentioned earlier in this episode, These food rules have developed over years, like years and years, from your childhood, from family, from friends, from growing up, from a colleague at work. You have developed these rules around food. So, in order to get rid of them, you need to repeat and reinforce so you can do differently. So, like I said with the bread example, if you're always the girl that only has one piece of bread because you think that for some reason eating two pieces of bread is going to miraculously tip you over the edge, it's going to make you gain 5 kilos, it's going to make you unhealthy, start eating the two pieces of bread. If you're the girl that never has the pasta at nighttime or doesn't have lasagna because you know that it's really high in calories and cheese and fat and all of those kind of things, have yourself a small serving of lasagna. Pair it with a nice green leafy salad. Enjoy that lasagna mindfully and take it off your food rule list. But like I said, these things have developed over a long period of time. So it does take practice, it does take repetition. So you can reinforce those more positive food rules that you have. So it's about changing the language that you're using and that inner dialogue and the way that you talk to yourself about food. Removing words and language like good and bad and fat and all of those words because they're not helpful. They are just keeping you stuck. So, like I said, it does take time, it does take practice, and it does take reinforcement. But honestly, just from you listening to this episode, you're now aware. Like I've put this food rules thing on your radar and you are now aware. You're listening to this and going, okay, yeah, it's me. I've definitely got some food rules that are keeping me stuck and I need to work out what they are. Like I said, write them down, ditch your piece of paper and start working on establishing a new set of food rules for yourself. So things like all foods are okay to eat in moderation. No food is good or bad. If I want to eat 2 bits of toast, that's totally okay if that fits into my whole day of nourishing eating. All of those things and the things that we say, the internal dialogue, we can change these food rules, these deeply embedded food rules that we've established over a long period of time, but we can change it. But like I said, it's about becoming aware of it. You need to identify it, you need to ditch it, and then you need to repeat and reinforce. Over time, you're slowly getting rid of those harsh and restrictive food rules that are no longer serving you, and you are replacing them with some new beliefs and some new understandings and some more positive rules around food, because that's what will set you up for success and that's what will get you out of this cycle where you just feel stuck all the time. Because again, the food rules keep repeating, they keep coming up, they're not going to go away until you become aware of them and until you start dealing with them. Those food rules are going to pop up over and over again. So, like for me, for the example of I don't eat fat because it's going to make me fat, when I educated myself around food and nutrition, I learnt that's just not the case and that it's totally okay and actually a very important part of our diet to incorporate healthy fats into our diet. But again, that took me time, it took consistency, and it took me becoming aware of these food rules that I had for myself and starting to slowly get rid of them over time. Awareness is the biggest key to successful change. You would be surprised how many things that you just do on a daily basis when it comes to not only healthy eating, but how you exercise that you're just not even aware of. So that's what this episode is all about. It's about making you become a bit more aware about the food rules that you have for yourself so that you can finally start to make some positive change and that you can finally start to feel unstuck. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that you got lots of little gems out of it and that you're going to grab your piece of paper and write out all your food rules so that you can ditch them in the bin, whatever you need to do so that you can become aware of them and finally start letting them go. If you are looking for new healthy meal ideas that are quick, easy, and family friendly and that don't require a ton of ingredients, you can head to my website and I'll also put it in the show notes and download your healthy eating and weight loss essential kits. It's got meal plan ideas, it's got recipe ideas, lots of things to kickstart your motivation and some new meal ideas that you can easily try out at home. Also, if you did love this episode, I would be super grateful if you could leave a rating or review or screenshot and share this episode to your socials so that I can help more women out there. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in our next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the Healthy Her podcast. If you enjoyed today's chat and found it helpful, hitting that follow or subscribe button would be amazing because your support means the world to me. Come connect with me on Instagram @theactivebod for your daily dose of inspiration and for loads of new easy meal ideas. Take care and keep thriving. See you next week.